This audiobook is an original modern retelling inspired by the Mahabharata. It explores Karna's story in Kali Yuga, where birth still defines worth, but choices define destiny. What you are about to hear is only the beginning. In an age where destiny is written by the stars, and society decides worth before choice is ever given, one son was born without a name the world would accept. This is not the Mahabharata you know. This is the story of memory, of defiance, and of a boy who dares to challenge the fate he was born into. This is a story of a boy, not as history remembers him, but as destiny feared he might become. This is Kunti Putra Karan. Prologue. Deep booms of the drums thundered across the plains, the deep sounds rippling through the earth like the heavy footfall of a giant. War elephants, massive, armored, and unlike anything seen in the world today, answered with shrill cries. Their tusks caped in bronze, their towering bodies draped in warcloth, and upon their backs rose mighty howdahs, carrying warriors armed with gleaming spears and longbows, cutting through the chaos relentlessly. The air reeked of blood, thick, metallic, and yet almost sweet. It filled his lungs with a strange exhilaration. Not fear, never fear. Something sharper, something hungry, something alive. He stood on the chariot racing across the war ground, driven by a figure clad in iron mail. A crown glinted on the charioteer's brow, noble yet fierce. Karan could not remember where he had seen it before. It felt like a scene torn from an old epic, yet disturbingly familiar, as if he already had lived this one before. Karan looked at himself. A massive bow rested in his right hand, its dark wood worn almost alive beneath his grip. A quiver hugged his back, filled with slender arrows tipped with razor-sharp nozzles that glinted even through the dust-filled light. Beautiful, he thought, as he drew one out, placed it on his bow, and pulled the string back with surprisingly practiced ease. His arms seemed to remember the motion even though for his waking mind he had never held a weapon like this before. Or so he thought. A faint sting danced across his forearm as while he drew the bowstring he brushed past the edge of the chariot, sharp enough to make him flinch, but gone before he could properly register it. His eyes scanned the war ground. "Where is he?" he muttered, a pulse of frustration in his throat. He searched again, heart pounding now again not from fear, but from rising, inexplicable fury that always seemed to accompany him in such dreams. "Where are you hiding?" he bellowed, and the battlefield seemed to tremble under the fierceness of his voice. "Where in this hell are you?" he cried out aloud. A soft and gentle hand touched his shoulder. The stench of the blood began to fade. The drums faded into a dull echo. The cries of men and beasts began to dissolve like a mist in sunlight. Everything dimmed, first the elephants, then the warriors, then the chariot beneath his feet until only darkness remained, then a sudden warmth. A familiar smell of parathas frying in ghee, soft and golden, stuffed with potatoes just the way he liked them. A firmer nose. "Karan, wake up!" He gasped and sat up. The battlefield shattered like a fragile dream, replaced by the soft morning light filtering into his room. His mother sat beside him, worry etched across her face. He blinked, both disoriented and disturbed, the echo of rays still throbbing in his chest, a searing gleam from a life he didn't understand. "Same dream again?" Kunti asked, her sigh a blend of concern and resignation. Karan didn't answer. His mind was still tangled in the remnants of the vision of the blood, the drums, and the hunt for the unseen enemy. "Beta," Kunti said gently, brushing back his hair, "these dreams, these are coming more often now. Are you all right? Do you want to talk about it? It helps, you know. Interpreting dreams, that's one of my favorite hobbies." She smiled softly. But beneath that smile, Karan sensed something unnerving his mother. Fear, perhaps, or recognition, as if she knew more about these dreams than she let on. For a long moment, Karan sat there in silence as if letting the last tremors of the dream fade from his pulse. The room felt far too small compared to the vastness of the war ground, too quiet, too clean, but his hands still clasped as if they still held the bow and arrow. He stared at his hands. They looked ordinary, unclenched and unscarred, soft even. How could these hands belong to the warrior in his dreams? "Beta," Kunti said again, more softly now, "look at me." As he did so, her eyes searched his face, lingering on the faint shadows beneath his eyes. That dream, was it exactly the same? She asked. Karan hesitated. In truth, it hadn't been exactly the same. This time, the charioteer's crown had been clearer, the war ground louder, his anger sharper. And this time, he could almost remember the face of the one he had been searching for. Almost. I don't know, he murmured. It felt stronger. Kunti's hand paused in mid-air, just for a moment, barely noticeable for any watching eye, but enough, Karan noticed. She recovered quickly. Dreams do that, she said. Especially when your mind is tired. I am not tired, Ma, Karan said. At least not in the way she meant. But he was tired. He was tired of waking up feeling like he belonged somewhere else, was someone else, an entirely different existence, maybe far ahead of his time, maybe far before. Kunti stood and adjusted the curtain to let more sunlight in. Come now, breakfast is ready, and you are going to be late for class. Karan exhaled slowly and swung his legs off the bed. The cold touch of the floor beneath brought him back to this world, this morning, this life, his life. The scent of parathas drew him towards the table, warm and comforting. But as he stood, something in the mirror beside his bed caught his eye. On his forearm, faint and fading quickly, was a thin red line, a shallow cut. He froze. He touched it. It stung. That was impossible. In the dream, as he brushed past the edge of the chariot while drawing his bow, a sharp metal breeze had grazed his skin. But dreams couldn't do this. They never did this. What is happening? Karan, Kunti called again from the kitchen. Are you coming? He pulled down his sleeve quickly. Yes, coming, he said. He glanced once more at the fading cut before stepping out of the room. A single, undeniable thought pulsed at the base of his skull. The dream had followed him into the real world. Chapter 1. The Echo After Waking. Karan moved through the kitchen mechanically, each step measured, as if the dream still held him by his ankles, trying to drag him back. The familiar clatter of a spoon upon the hot pan, the smell of fresh parathas, the morning breeze filtering through the curtains, none of which seemed to settle him today the way they usually did. Kunti looked up from the stove, eyeing her son quietly with practiced glances. He didn't notice at first, but she was watching him the way someone watches the sun with an awe, but also with fear of being burned. Eat, she said gently, sliding a plate towards him. Karan sat, but his eyes drifted. His sleeve kept brushing against the fading cut beneath it, reminding him with each movement that the dream had been more than just a figment of his imagination. It seemed to him more like a memory. Kunti sat opposite to him, wiping her hands in her dhoti, observing him the way a mother observes a child she can't afford to lose. Karan, she began carefully. How long have you been having these dreams now? He swallowed a mouthful that surprisingly he couldn't taste. They started months ago, once every few months at first, then once a month, now almost every week. Kunti's figure curled tightly around the edge of the table. You should have told me sooner, no? You'd worry. Of course I would worry, she said, sharper than she meant to. The words cracked in the air beneath him. She closed her eyes, exhaled, and softened her tone. Beta, dreams like this, they are not normal. Karan raised an eyebrow and with a hint of a smile he teased. You said they were just because of a tired mind. Her lips tensed at that remark. Karan noticed. She had lied. He had sensed it then, but now he was sure. Karan, she said slowly, choosing each word as if it might shatter something delicate. Dreams can be echoes. Echoes of what we fear, what we desire, sometimes even echoes of who we once were. He froze. She immediately looked away, realizing she had said too much. Ma, what do you mean, who we once were? It's nothing, she said too quickly. Just superstition. Radha used to say things like that. But Karan wasn't fooled. Her voice trembled, just slightly, like a door rattling against the storm she was trying to keep out. He leaned forward. Ma, Do you know something about these dreams? Kunti stiffened. For a long moment she said nothing. She only stared at the paratha in his plate, as if the swirling shape of the key held the answers she refused to say out aloud. Finally, she whispered, "Some things are better forgotten, Karan." Karan felt a chill crawl up his spine. What do you mean forgotten? Forgotten by who? She didn't answer, not at first. For a long moment the only sound was the soft hiss of stove and distant murmur of people going about their morning duties. Kunti's gaze drifted past him, as if the kitchen walls could somehow hold the weight of her memories. Her voice, when it came, was low, layered with years of things left unsaid. "Karan," she began, quiet now, almost a whisper, "there was a time before you when my life was not like this." He looked at her carefully. His mother rarely spoke of her past, almost never, and even when she did, it was always limited to a childhood anecdote or a harmless family story, carefully stripped of anything real. But now her voice carried a different weight, the weight of truth. "I wasn't always like this," she said softly. "Living a simple life, cooking for two, working long hours, counting every rupee. No, this life I have built for us. But there was a time when I lived in luxury, with comforts that now feel like someone else's dream." Karan blinked. The words felt foreign coming from his mother, who rolled rotis with worn hands, who though laughed easily but guarded her silence fiercely. "I grew up in a world where the air was always thick with perfume and the sound of servants scurrying, where people bowed when I walked by," she continued, in her voice a hint of nostalgia and bitterness. "Where the servants trailed behind me, where my father's word was the law, and my comfort was a given, not something I earned." There was no pride in her voice, only memory. And then Kunti's voice trembled slightly. "I had you, without wedlock, without their permission, without their blessing." Karan stiffened. She had never said it out aloud before, not so directly. "My family called it a scandal," she said, her voice hollow. "A disgrace. They cast me out before you were even born." "So you left everything?" Karan whispered. "I didn't leave," Kunti corrected gently. "I was thrown out. But know this, beta, I walked away with no regrets, not one, because I was walking away with you." Her eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with certainty. "I lost everything that day, my name, my place, my inheritance, but I had you, and that was enough." She sat straight now, her voice gaining strength. Touching his hand gently with her own, she continued, "And I revealed myself, and I survived. In the same society that had spat me out, with my own hands, my own work, my own name. No one handed me respect, yet I carved it out until even those who whispered against me had no choice but to acknowledge me. And I earned it, every brick, every coin, every moment. And I would do it all again if it meant protecting you." There was steel in her now, the Kunti the world didn't see, one who had fought quietly for 16 years and won. Her hand hovered near his again, tentative, full of unspoken longing and fear, but didn't touch. "But I didn't do it alone," she said, softly, almost reverently. "Radha, my friend, my sister in everything but blood, stood by me. She helped shield you from the world, from my past, from everything that could have ever hurt you. Without her, I don't know if we would have even survived." "I raised you with her help," Kunti said. "Raised you to be good, to be strong, to be untouched by the bitterness of my past." Her voice grew softer, almost breaking. "I shielded you from all of this for years upon years. I never wanted you to feel the sting of the world that once crushed me." She finally met his eyes and said, "And I would do it all again Every struggle, every humiliation, every fight. I have no regrets, Karan, not one. Karan was fidgety. The room felt heavier, fuller, as if the air itself acknowledged the truth she has finally spoken. Ma, he said quietly, why are you telling me all this? Why now? Kunti hesitated. Then, with a trembling breath, she answered, because whatever is happening to you, whatever those dreams are, they are not just dreams. And I'm afraid the past I fought so hard to keep from you is finding its way back. Her gaze dropped for a moment to the faint cut on his forearm, the one she wasn't supposed to notice, the one he had tried so carefully to hide. Her face went pale, and for a heartbeat she seemed smaller, fragile, as if the weight of the world had finally pressed down on her shoulders. That shouldn't be possible, she whispered, her voice barely audible, tinged with horror. It's starting. Karan's stomach tightened. What's starting? He asked, his voice shaking, though he tried to keep it steady. She lifted her eyes to meet his, and in them he saw something he had never seen before. The truth she had carried alone for 16 years. It wasn't just fear, it was a distant memory, a deepening regret, a wistful determination, and love, her love for him. Your past, she said, her voice steadier now, one that you were never meant to remember. The silence that followed was thick, as though the very air had paused to acknowledge the weight of her words. Karan's mind rest. The dreams, the battlefield, the cut, everything snapped into place. Something deep within him stirred. A recognition that went beyond logic, beyond reason. Karan swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling deep into his chest. He had always known, rather loved him, but he never understood the depth of her loyalty. For the first time, he truly understood the fortress of love and determination that he grew up in. Every choice, every sacrifice, every silent battle they had fought, all of it had been for him. And for the first time, he realized the danger of the world outside, the one his mother and Radha had been shielding him from all these years. The danger was no longer just a story, no longer something to fear in dreams. It was real, and it had found him. The cut in his arm throbbing faintly, a whisper of the battles yet to come, a reminder that his mother's warning were not idle words. Karan's hand clenched into fist, his chest tight with a strange sense of inevitability. Fear, curiosity, and something deeper stirred within him, a haunting knowledge that everything was about to change forever gripped up his heart. Not every destiny is fulfilled in one telling. This was only the beginning of Karan's journey. Some stories don't end when the telling stops. They wait for remembrance and for choice. Thank you for listening. This is an origin story and this chapter is only the beginning. If this story found a place with you, if Karan's journey stirred something within you, let me know in the comments. Your voice and your responses will decide whether his story continues. Thank you again.